ground they gave us back. Each road, each border cross came from a harder path. So I walk a little slower when the flag goes by. I hear their silence in the open sky. We carry their flame, we carry their flame, from coast to coast and name to name. We live this life, we run this race, we carry their flame, we carry their flame. For the train ride, the runaway, the map stretched wide and free. For the small voice saying, go see what you can be. For the chance to come home with stories in our hands. We owe more than thanks, we owe our hearts to stand. So I lift my eyes when the morning comes. Every open door was bought by someone. We carry their flame, we carry their flame, we carry their flame, we carry their flame.
Well,
It is Tuesday.
Andy sure can sing.
All right.
And I love the accompaniments with the background with your kids. Man, geez. Mary, you guys are such a talented family.
Hey, my kids can sing. I can't. They have notified me. Don't sing, Mom.
Sound like my kids when I'm laughing. Don't sing, Dad.
Oh, welcome to Travel Tuesday, everybody. You know, it's funny as this weather is changing. You know, we're putting winter behind us finally. Although Mary told me this morning, somewhere our south and west of her, they got snow today. But you and I are
Wyoming.
we're not talking about snow here in Buffalo or Orlando. We're talking about the beautiful, wonderful heat and sun, the refreshing, the restoring beauty of our sun. Spelled, we like the one that's spelled S-U-N. We like the one that's spelled S-O-N even better. But, you know, today we have the privilege to talk about travel and how it can affect each individual on the call and our friends and families. And what I'm excited about the most is that we are at the perfect timing to realize there's so much things going wild in the normal world. The old day, the formula for getting a good education, get a good job, expect to work for 40 years, and everything was supposed to be okay. Well, that was a lie. And it still is a lie.
It still
The
is
thing
fun.
is, I haven't talked about it in a long time, Rick, but I think I will today.
Please do.
You know, a number of years ago, hundreds of years ago, Europe was the primary source of the communities in the world. And there were dictatorships or kingdoms, and you were either born of royalty or you were born a serf. You were a slave. Doesn't matter, you were either royalty or a slave. Well, at one point when the Renaissance happened, people decided and realized that the world wasn't flat and that they could go. There were new places to explore. And so they came exploring, and Christopher Columbus, of course, by accident, ended up down in the Dominican Republic, claimed it the New World, it's called, America. And what came out of that was, and the people that went there, that got on the little boats, first of all, you have to understand, they gave up everything they had. I have a question for everybody on the call today. What did they have? They couldn't own property, so they had the belongings on their back and maybe what they had in a chest. So they got on the little boats, the Pinta Maria and the Santa Maria, Nina Pina and the Santa Maria, and they came to America. And the one thing that they did when they got on the shore, in this case, they ended up in up there in Boston.
I think you missed getting the Mayflower and the Nina and the Peanut.
Yeah. Anyways,
Plymouth Rock.
help me out with the history here.
Plymouth Rock.
As they they landed on the ground, the shore, and they got on their knees and they thank God. Number one, they thank God for the providence to make it, to get through the months and months over the oceans, bad weather and everything. And they were grateful that they were alive and they were in a new land. They could start over. They could make something happen. And they did that. Now, I got to tell you, this is news to a lot of young people today and a whole generation of older people. They didn't come here looking for a paycheck. They didn't come here looking for a medical policy. They didn't come here looking for free. They came here to be free of the
tyranny
or whatever they were putting up with where they lived. And they decided they were going to found a new country. And through the energy and the time, and by the way, they experimented with something called communism or socialism. And they found out in 1 year, utilizing that system, they starved to death. They died. It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. So what they found is that there were people who had different skills, and they could use those skills and trade. They started with trading, barter, trading what they knew and what they learned to do. Some were farmers, and they learned how to grow, mostly from the Indians that helped them. And they grew, and then they shared their crops with somebody who could make like a plow, who was a smith, a blacksmith. So the idea is this, folks, that we were created out of ambitious, work hard, worthy people who came here for freedom, and they didn't come for a paycheck. They didn't come to look for something on Friday, do the work today and get paid on Friday. And you're going to demand from somebody, because guess what? You can demand from yourself by what you do. And so out of that became capitalism, and out of that grew the great country that we are in the world today, leading the world. And that, to me, that story is so critical in today's world. If you don't like how you're living, well, look at what you're doing to make that living. If it doesn't do what you want it to do, it was America. You can change. You have options. And our goal is to help you through 365. We have a company that empowers you. It gives you the tools to make a difference and create income, create prosperity. Rick, you want to take it away?
If you don't like how you're living, then look at what you're doing to make that living. Ron, you got to write that down. Linda, you got to write that down and send it to me.
Okay.
That is a serious quote. If you don't like how you're living, you have to look at what you're doing to make that living. And that is so true. What are you doing to make that living? And, and what is so powerful about what you're saying is that we have the freedom to do something about it. We don't have to just sit and wait for something to get done. We actually have the freedom to do something about it. That's why no one can complain about anything, because we have the freedom to do something about it. Now, what do we do? I remember, and I've said the story before, back in 2004, when I came into the travel business. And I came just to have fun. Like, we're down in Orlando. We're using our 7-day stay. We invited our daughter to come down from Colorado, and she works for a defense contractor. And working, making things happen. Didn't even realize she needed a vacation. So you can imagine us, the parents, hey, come on down and enjoy yourself. Take some time off. She's dedicated to the job while her boss and coworkers are taking their time off. No, you need to take time off. So she finally says, okay, I'll do that. And so she gets in vacation mode. And she says, and she loves to golf. So she says, you know what? I'm going to schedule a tea time. And she was here last Friday. She got here last Friday and just left today. I'm scheduling a tea time to golf. There's a golf course right near you guys. Spanky! There's a golf course right near you guys. And so I'm going to schedule some time. She's pretty much like that. And that expression, everything. And so she scheduled a tea time. I'm like, wow. And sometimes as parents, you forget your kids are grown adults. And so, I used to golf, I don't anymore. So at first, my first reaction was, okay, and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. I'm like, oh, wow. Normally, you go to a place, you do things together, you know, even just for security, right? You do things together. You don't go off and do this, that, and the other. You stay together two by two. And I quickly realized that was the parent in me when they were growing up, and that she is actually a grown adult, and she actually does that, in Denver by herself. Anyway, and so quickly I changed around. I said, oh yeah, I sent an email saying, no, you shouldn't do that. Not necessarily you shouldn't do that, but
Hey, there you go.
and then I and then I changed up real quick, and I said, no, you're gonna golf and you're gonna have a great time. And so they'll pair you up with somebody, and you guys are gonna have a great time. Long story short, she did. She had a fantastic time, and we went out and did different things together. Went to a very delicious Japanese restaurant, and she loves sushi, and so we had sushi and the buffet. Went to another. She loves lobster. Brenda loves lobster, and we traveled to eat, by the way. And so there's a place down here called Boston Lobster, where it's all you can eat lobster and crab legs. And Ron, Linda, you guys would have loved it. All you can eat everything, prime rib. But the thing is, you got these places, but you can only eat so much. You know, yeah, you can only eat so much. You can only eat so many lobsters. You can only eat so many whatever, whatever, whatever. But putt golf, and we spent some beautiful time near the
Ah,
pool, relaxing at the pool and just enjoying it, and ah, just vacation. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to take time out for yourself. You have to take time out to enjoy your life. You have to take time out to de-stress, to detox. And it turns out my daughter was able to do that. She was able to de-stress, detox, uh, get back with the family and realize this Japanese restaurant there, Kobe's, and get back in tune with herself, with the childlike nature of just being with her parents and just being able to let go and be free and not be so on edge. And she was able to do that. And so we just spent time at the pool. We spent time just doing the putt putt golf. She did the real golf. I did the putt putt golf. And just enjoying each other. We was going to do the roller coaster. She loves roller coasters, and so SeaWorld has a amazing roller coaster.
yeah.
73 miles an hour, and it's going up and down and twisting and taking you all over the place. And but we just didn't have time to do that. But we drove out to the Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, and that was pretty awesome. We didn't go into the park. We stayed outside the park. You've seen it all before. When I was down here, now I really dated myself, and it was one of those aha moments. You're out of touch. So we go to NASA. We go to Kennedy Space Center, And they had a lot of things you could see without going into the park. And so we're looking at the different, rockets and different things. And so when I was down here 40 plus years ago, launching the GPS satellites from Cape Canaveral, I went on to Cape Canaveral, and that's of course where we launched the GPS satellite, the very first GPS satellite in many sense. And so I went down there and I was able to get on base. I was able to go out to the launch pad. I was able to go see where they was launching the shuttle from, and I had free reign of the base. The base has had a 15-foot alligator, and I forget his name. And the security police would feed that alligator roadkill. And one of the guys that was there, he said, "Hey, you want to go out and see, our base alligator?" I'm like, "Sure." And so we go out to see the base alligator. There's no barrier between the alligator and us. 15-foot alligator. And I'm like, does he normally stay in place? Or does he, is he well fed? They say, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The security police roadkill, they'll throw it over to him and he eats the roadkill." And so I was dating myself. I was expecting to show Brenda and my daughter that experience. Hey, let's go on base. Got my military ID card. And Mary, do you know that it is now not an Air Force base, but they have the U.S. Space Force?
That's right.
Yeah.
And they turned it into basically a restricted base. And so, so we're on our way. We go to Kennedy Space Center. And I said, "Man, we need to go on base. Just kind of drive around. When you're military, retired, you go on base, you get that feel. The commissary is over here, the chapel's over there, this is over there, everything basically in the same layout. Even if you're overseas, one of the greatest sights overseas is seeing American Air Base. And if you're
You're on
traveling,
home soil.
you're on home soil, you see that base, you
It's
pass
like
the gate. Go ahead.
it's like a USO in the airports.
Like a
Even when you're
USO
overseas,
airport.
if you go to the USO, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm safe.
I'm safe.
I'm free.
Isn't that weird? That feeling of safe. I'm I'm home. I'm free. I'm with my
No.
buds. You can't beat that feeling. So I'm saying, okay, hey, I'm been here before 40 years ago. I'm going on base. And I get to the base and I'm like, wow, US Space Force, that's interesting. And then my daughter, she's looking it up, and she's military, so she gets a civilian cat card and all that stuff. And she looks it up and says, "Dad, I think this is restricted." I'm like, "Oh no, no, no! My my military ID will get me in. You go on base, just give a salute, and you go on." I go there, and she said this before we got there. She says, "I'm telling you, Dad." I'm like, "No, no, no, no! I've been here before." And sure enough, we get to the gate, and the guy says, "Okay, can I see your ID?" He says, "I'm sorry, sir. This is active duty only."
You gotta re-up, Rick.
He
You gotta
says,
re-up.
I gotta re-up. I'll re-up when Mary re-ups. Mary, you re-up?
Hey, I am exempt from recall. I am exempt from re-upping.
Are you?
I am because I actually got recalled twice since I've been out.
Have you? Oh
Yep.
my
But
gosh.
because of the kids, I am not required to. I can't be recalled.
Well, Ron, I could be recalled. And that's what I should have told him. I should have said, "Hey, sir, I can be recalled anytime." Of course, he wasn't having any of it. And so he said, "Sir, I'm going to move this cone, and let me hold your card. I'm going to stop the traffic, and you can do a UE right out." I do a UE right out. And of course, my daughter's sitting in the background. She doesn't say anything, but we know.
She's just laughing. inside her head. She's like, I told you, I told you.
Did I not say? And we're going back and forth on our way to it. No, 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 no. Hey, I show my military ID card, I get in. And so I do a
From
U.
what
Huh?
I've got friends stationed there, and from what they told me, it's actually worse there than it is at Area 51
Yeah,
for security.
yeah, 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 yeah. You figure that's where they launched Artemis too. And me flashing back. I can imagine though how retirees feel, or even what was the 90-year-old veteran, World War II veteran, 90 plus year old, 99-year-old veteran that just passed away.
Papa Jake?
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine how he feels seeing the transitions of the military from, his day to today? Because I'm thinking even just 40 years ago, when
Well,
I
look
was,
at, Len Kane talks about that and what he went through from learning to fly and his friends fighting in World War II. We were watching Memphis Belle, and they actually got to, with the help of AI, take some of that old original footage that was too scratched to use when they created the original movie. And it's one of those military war movies that you see in training. And I was talking to Jim about, I go, it's kind of funny how when we watch these in training, they were boring as hell. And now that we don't have to watch them, we're actually entertained by it. And watching how our original pilots had to crawl through the bomb loading bay to get into the plane. And you didn't have GPS then, you had compasses. You've never been to this area. It's really not marked for air or maps because, this is all new. And you having to fly to a destination, drop bombs on buildings, and make it back in one piece. And watching this original footage, those round balls where the gunners are, I thought you crawled into them from the plane as you're needing to use them. No, you're in these glass balls underneath with your weapons before you take off.
Yep. hmm
I
My
know.
Like, how scary is that?
yeah, my stepfather was a gunner on one of those planes post World War II, running from Korea. He was a gunner, and he had to be like he had to have like double fuse up on the spine just to get into the bubble. He said it was the most cramped place I ever been on earth.
Can you imagine flying an entire mission
Yeah,
in
his
that?
knees are up to he said his knees are up by his chest, and the gun was right on exactly on almost like 3 inches or 4 inches from his chest. Yeah, he said it was. They had two guys that just to get him out after the missions were over. He was so cramped up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You can
And
imagine
there's
flying
no
an
ejection seats.
no,
What's that, Barry?
There's no ejection
no,
seats. So
No.
there's no way getting out when the plane goes down.
mm,
No, there's no way of getting out if the plane's being shot at.
no.
Who are they aiming for?
Him,
The bubble.
yeah.
You wonder what the survival rate of those guys, but you talk about courage, courage to do.
hmm
I was listening to something. In fact, in my book, I have a quote that courage is not overcoming fear. Courage is
hmm
is is when the responsibility for the moment overrides your common sense, your
Hmm.
self-survival. Courage is when you see the importance of the responsibility of what you're doing, and it takes over, and you
hmm
just do it because you're responsible. I got to do this. Whether it's charging a hill, whether it's saving a friend that has been shot, that response, that feeling of responsibility, or going on a mission, and we got to do this. We got to accomplish this mission, and then responsibility takes over from there.
Hmm.
So here we are, restricted access. They do a UE, I do a UE, and I'm driving back. You're right, Mary. My daughter does. We don't. There's silence in the car.
I told you so.
Now, when your kids can tell you, "I told you so," and they don't say
Hmm.
it, but they think it.
Hmm. They just have to look at you. That's all.
And so here I am, man. Wow, 40 years ago, man, I was able to get on the base. I'm trying to say something, instead of just to break the silence of what everybody's thinking. Dad.
Wow.
And so, but yeah, it's man, times change,
Hmm.
and unless a person makes an adjustment to the changing times, they miss it. In the days today, you really have to have a business. You have to have a business. You have to have something, and Mary had put it up, something that gives you hope to the future, that says, okay, you got to start somewhere. And if you start today, right? And this is one of the things that was so important for me, is that in 2004, and leaving corporate America in 2005, having been working 80 hours a week. And I'm like, you know what? They're trying to kill me. They have no regard. They will let me go, drop of a hat, drop of a feather. They will let me go. I've got to look out for my future, and that's not an easy thing to do, because I'm like, but what is that future? This is a paycheck, and letting a paycheck in hand go for an entrepreneurial opportunity, but that's where that courage comes in, and responsibility. That's when I said, you know what, I have to secure my future, not just my immediate present. And I made a decision, 2000, February 7th, 2005, to become, full time, in the travel business. Now, I didn't know it was going to be full time, but that's kind of what it turned out to be. Sometimes we get pushed and pressured to do different things. And at the time, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. This is it. And we realized that was the lifeline. Man, that was my lifeline. Had I said, no, thank you, who knows where I'd be today? Because Brenda nor I have gone back to work since 2005. Think about that. And so we rode the business through 2008, when the economy did a little dip. We rode the business through 2020, COVID, and and here we made it. A lot of times when it feels like it's the living end, you know, you actually are gonna ways to make it, you know, and so, but it's not easy taking taking that step. It's like, oh, it's like with the what's that old movie with Indiana Jones, where he takes a step into the abyss. You know, something's coming behind him. He's like, okay, I'm gonna die. There's an abyss drop off, nothing but darkness. And then when he takes a step appears. He goes, oh, hey, I'm saved. That's what it's like.
Hmm. Yeah.
You get a sense of security because there's actually a vital operation that you've surrounded yourself, Rick, with, and the people. You know, the key is that you worked with people. Linda and I are an example. You helped us along with many other people, and we're able to accomplish and do things today because you reached out, your hand and offered to help us. And it's in doing that, that's called servant, being a servant. You're willing to help somebody else. You never once, I've never known, I know you've had circumstances, family, health, all kinds of issues you've lived through. It's not that you didn't want to burden me with those things. You didn't need to give me. I got my own. You wouldn't want mine. Nobody else wants mine either. And so what we're all about is being that servant leader, the person who takes a step out on faith and then does something. And when you do those things, then God can reward you, and He does.
That's
That's the
good.
truth. He does.
Ron, you got to write a book, man. Everything you say is so awesome. Um, it's quotable. Everything you say is quotable. But you're right. Servant leadership, and both our
Hmm.
buds taught us a lot about that. Joe Griffin, taught us about servant leadership and being servant leaders, and reaching out for other people. Did Kurt know Joe?
Oh yes, yes I did.
What was your experience, and how would you describe Joe based on your experience?
Joe was a servant leader, like you said. He was also an encouragement. He encouraged everybody to look out of the box and expose yourself to challenges and how to deal with a challenge. He one time he came up to me. He says, "No, you would make a great life coach." And I said, "Me make a? What do you mean?" He said, "You have that passion of helping people. You have this passion of listening to people, and you would make a great life coach." And he encouraged me to become a life coach, and that's how I did. And but he didn't look down on you. He looked at you and he saw the potential in you, and he made you look, okay, I could do this. And I mean, he was a wonderful encourager. Um, he always, like I said, he always made you look outside the box and to to make yourself better. And I take that forward as of today, or what I told him. So he has definitely changed the life of me and everybody he talked to.
You know, Maya Angelou, she has a quote that people don't remember. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but people don't
Hmm.
necessarily remember what you do, but they do remember how you made them feel.
Hmm.
He made us feel validated, worthy.
Yeah.
Um, he made us feel, how different. He made us feel good. Just talking to him, and the wisdom that he had, and
Hmm.
just how he spoke. He just validated so much in us, just in how he spoke that made us feel good. And we'll always remember that. That was a significant turning point in my life, especially like Ron, we talk about Burl Walk and Burl Walk's multi-billionaire, gazillionaire radio show, World's Greatest Marketer, that he used to do. And Brenda and I being on that show and talking about travel. And the girl's like, Rick, I want to hear Brenda. Where's
Yeah.
Brenda? I want her to hear her talk about travel. Like, okay, Brenda, come and talk about travel. World wants to hear you. And but me hearing Joel talk about hope, you
Hmm.
know, the Hope Collection, about his mom and his stories, and him talk about logistics and supply chain and how product gets to market, and just hearing him, talk about the different things that he's knowledgeable, which is basically everything. I'm listening to him, Ron. I'm like, you know what? I gotta meet that guy. There's certain people that you hear them. It's like, man, I so relate to hear Joe talk about ownership and owning something. You need to own something, not just work for somebody, but own something. And then hear him and Burl walk, go back and forth. 80% of the people hate the job that they're going to, but don't do anything about it. And I'm like, that's right. And even how they talked about, multi-level marketing or network marketing, and how it's the hope of this generation, to set this generation free from the corporations who try to taint it, saying that it's this, that, and the other, but actually it's freedom from them, cutting out the middleman and connecting the consumers directly to the product, the people, the suppliers, and cutting out the middleman and paying us for the product, the training, all those things, the commissions, and cutting out the middleman. Ron, talk about that. How society and business, corporate has protected themselves.
Well,
And go
the,
ahead.
the idea that the corporations are good. You can't build a car. I mean, back in the turn of the century, Henry Ford did it. He built a car from nothing and then a whole factory. But he created the assembly line. That's what they did with jobs. They put them into the assembly line and they were able to drive the public to believe that system would solve all the problems. But they never told you that it was going to do it. They just pretended. And then that many people build in their minds a false sense of status, a sense of security, a sense of vision through what they were doing was going to respond and give them what they wanted. The fact of the matter, the only way you can get that is to own something, like you said. Joel constantly was. We've grown up in a generation that we were taught at school from early days through high school and college, and even after. The only way out in my family, the only way out was you get a good college education, big degree, and you join a big corporation, and they take care of you. That was the solution. Well, no, it never did that. It never could do that. They could give us a lift, some things, that could give us a better way of life than if we didn't have anything. But what we did learn, and Joel opened the store for us, is that we could own. We were never in anything. He never wanted me to get into anything except trouble. I did that all the time. So he got us to understand that we could get into our own entity and own it. Ownership is the key to all of it. When you own it, you can create value and you can use that to leverage your lifestyle, leverage your freedom. And what's happened today is so many people don't have any tools to leverage. I always describe it this way because my mom, we used to like to, we had a garden and we grew tomatoes. And she would go out the garden and they come, ripe after being there for a couple of months. And we'd bring them in, wash them off. And she always went and looked. We were always teased. She got one of those plastic gizu knives. Now, the reason that she used that as compared to if we didn't have a gizu knife, she would have used a butter knife. To cut that tomato, you do butter knife, it's going to splat. It's not made, it doesn't have the sharpness, it doesn't have the ability to do the job. That was like my job. It couldn't give me the lifestyle. There was no lifestyle attached to it, only work. So you still have to do the work. The difference is the reward. When you own it, you will equity, and then you can utilize that to leverage your lifestyle. And Surge 365 is a tool. It's the Ginzu knife. It cuts through the process where you are today to where you can be a week, a month, a year from now. This is the most exciting. First of all, travel. For goodness sakes, you don't have to ask anybody, would you like to travel? I don't care if they've never traveled. There's nobody that says I wouldn't like to travel. There's always somebody that wants. There's someplace somebody wants to go. So if they say they can't afford it, you can show them how to do it.
You know,
If you
Ron,
do it,
we're
if you don't know how to do it, you can show them how to do it. Give them a tool for them to do it. You're empowering. The key is in our whole life has always been to empower others. And we've gone through centuries of different civilizations or societies where freedom was something that somebody else gave. And what we learned is that ownership is taking it and owning it and doing something with it. So no matter where we're at, we can become empowered. We can change the circumstances today.
That's good. That's good. We definitely can change. We're down here in Orlando using our 7-day reward trip with Surge 365. So when a person's been a member, excuse me, for 12 months consecutive, they get a 7-day accommodation, paid accommodations, over 3,000 locations around the world. And we're down here using ours. And because we've been around for a while, of course, Ron, we've got several, which is really cool. And we want to make sure that every member, at least once a year, takes a vacation. Because a lot of Americans don't take vacations. They work right through. They're afraid for whatever reason, and they just don't take their vacation. So with Surge, you definitely will take a vacation. And so we're staying at a nice resort down here, and normally it would be like over $250 a night. And so we're staying 7 days. That's more than the cost of coming into business. And of course, we're independent contractors, so you get all the different write-offs for all the different things. And we always say, talk to your tax professional. But you look at the value of what we have. And Mary's showing something: dream, travel, repeat. And so many times when you stay at a resort property, they want to sell you a timeshare. This is no different. And so we're checking in, and this particular resort, bought a timeshare company. They actually bought a company, and so they're like, "Would you sit through a 90-minute presentation?" We're like, "Nah, we're travel agents. We have access to all of it. It's okay. We're just trying to basically, fill these seats. Would you sit through? Okay, what do you have to offer me? It's three of us. Okay, so they start offering stuff that we're like, no, buy one, get one free, Disney tickets, SeaWorld tickets. No, 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 we're just planning to relax by the pool. Okay, well, how about a Polynesian luau? And where they have the fire dancing and the buffet and all that. And I'm like, 3 tickets for that? We're like, now you're talking. And so we go to the Polynesian luau, where they have the dancing, then they have the spinning of the fire torches, and all those things. And oh man, you talk about a great experience. So they throw in 3 tickets to the Polynesian, luau. If you're in Orlando, you gotta go. If you're in Orlando, it's one of those must sees in Orlando. And then they said, and to top it off, we'll give you $100 on this gift card that you can use to go anywhere and do whatever. And we're like, hey, now you're talking.
they, they paid you to go on this uh, excursion.
And so we go to the luau, the Polynesian luau, and it was just an incredible evening. And they gave us the $100 gift card that we used at the Boston Lobster. And you look at those life experiences, and the majority of people don't take advantage of it. They don't take advantage of it because they never take the first step to get the next step, you know.
Mhm.
And so here, just in the 4 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, five, just in this time, we've had like the vacation of a lifetime. And so we still have, we'll be leaving Friday. And Brenda's birthday is Friday, and this is her kind of her birthday trip. And but you've got to take advantage. It doesn't just happen that you roll into a vacation. It doesn't just happen you roll into a cruise. You know, you roll like what you guys are doing and planning the cruise for next year on the Mardi Gras, Carnival's biggest ship, and the 7 day cruise, and the food on that cruise, and the excursions on that cruise, and the people on that cruise, and that doesn't just happen. How do you pass that on to get people to move off center to make a decision, which one that I made turned to be one of those life changing decisions back in 2004, 2005. How do you get people to recognize, like Mary has up here, start here, mission ahead, taking the first step is the scariest, but the reward is the greatest. Surge 365. Travel, people are doing. It may not be your thing, but like Warren Buffett says, tapping into what the world does is a great business option. Right? Tapping into what the world to override what the world is doing is a great business choice. Back to you.
I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he's coming to the Thursday event. For businesses like coaches and individuals who are just starting their business, trying to bring in revenue, trying to bring in clients, this is a great tool to help back up, and it makes it more comfortable to build that coaching business or that business up because you're not dependent on your clients paying you when you first start. And then as you build, and like his question was, well, what do I do once I start building my business? I go, hand out this link. It's residual. It's stuff that you can put as much time into it as you need to or want to.
You know what's
Just
interesting?
having this link.
Yes, the Vortex link is pretty neat. What I find most interesting is the free online training. Like people go back to college
Mm-hmm.
and they go into debt, spending thousands of dollars in college to be trained in something and no guarantee of employment. What I find interesting is the specialist training, the specialist travel training, which is a profession that's free and online. I have a gentleman that's joining the business, and his wife, his girlfriend lives in Bali, and they want to do trips to Bali and offer those trips. There's Bali specialist training, free and online, that she can take, and all the other trainings, wedding destination specialists, Orlando specialists, where a person can carve out whatever their passion is and become a certified specialist in that area. The business connects them to the industry, so they're not looking for a job. But I find really fascinating the fact that all this training, that you can build up your portfolio in any way you choose, right? And normally, going to college is going to cost you an arm and a leg. And this training is free, and it's vocational training. It's not just take this math class, take this, history class. This is like become a Disney specialist. I'm in Orlando. Become a SeaWorld specialist where they give you 2 free tickets to visit the park. Speaking of which, I never actually used my 2 free tickets. Hmm. I'm going to look that back up because
No,
huh?
you could be working at Disney or Universal or at a Hilton hotel. Taking this class certifies you into a different level to help increase where you're doing already and building that portfolio and that resume up to get a better job in the organization.
Wow. Hey, I've got to jump off for another meeting at 1, but always a pleasure. If you're listening, jump in. The water's fine.
Thanks, Rick.
Mm,
Barry, thanks, Kurt. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you. Happy
you too.
Memorial Day.
I receive. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.